Welcome to the November meeting of Lower Makefield Farmland Preservation, Inc. I'm Michael Blank. I'm the president of our board of directors, and I'd like to turn it over to the other board members to introduce themselves. Dan?
Dan Bankowski, treasurer.
Dennis?
Dennis Stedman, vice president and secretary.
And John?
LMT supervisor liaison.
Welcome, everyone, and we'll get right down to business. The first item is approval of our minutes from our October meeting, October 22nd. Assume that we've all read these, we've gone through them. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so approved. We'll go right to the treasurer's report. Dan Bankowski.
So we had two operating expenses in the last month. $2,250 was to Robert Small and Associates for our 2019 tax return and 2019 annual compilation. I have that in paper. I just haven't had a chance to get that scanned yet. And as soon as I get it scanned, the compilation and the tax return, if you guys want. But as soon as I get those scanned in, I'll email them to you, or actually I'll post them to the SharePoint so that you guys can see a copy of that.
Okay.
And the other expense was $1,400 payable to Corcoran Landscaping. That was for the work at Makefield Brook property. And I don't have the address, but it was the two addresses and the tree removal on the backside that Dennis helped take care of about a week ago or a week and a half ago. And that is it from an operating standpoint or from an operating expenses standpoint. We had a little bit of back and forth over the last couple weeks, just with a couple other items that I don't think that we're in a place right now to go into in detail, but more to kind of bring it up so people are thinking about it. One in particular, well, I guess they kind of work together, cash flow analysis, which is how we have it on the agenda. Really thinking about how, if we look at recent expenses and upcoming expenses, and if we think about the last couple of years and our expenses, and in most of the last few years, just in particular the last few, right, our expenses have been more than our operating income. And in the near term, I would expect the same thing to continue as we have some of these larger projects. And we had some larger projects the last couple of years. Some tree removal projects, some boundary issues, large chunks of property lines or property borders where we did some brush removal and then fence replacement as well. And so, Dennis had brought up last week about how, if we think about this in conjunction with, how much how linear distance that we have that borders neighbors on the property that we have, and what could the potential expenses be as we look at that compared to replacement costs over a timeline. And we've thought about and Dennis, you put together some analysis on just the total linear distance that we had for boundaries that neighbor residential properties, not other farms or wooded land, et cetera. So I think it kind of goes in part with our discussion around, trying to have some of these properties on a cycle every certain number of years, some sort of larger project, and trying to get into a habit of operating the properties that way rather than, or waiting to act on certain issues that we see rather than, as they come up, which is the way we've been operating the last few years for the most part. So Dennis, I don't know if you want to add maybe some comments around some of your thoughts there too, but like I said, I don't know if we're in a position to necessarily have some analysis quite yet. But as we continue, let me add, I guess, Bob Small, we are working with him for our tax returns. We have QuickBooks up and running now. We are getting 2020 and fully into QuickBooks. It may be cost prohibitive to go back in time too far, but I think certainly 2020 go forward, it makes sense. And we may just have kind of loose analysis for 2019 and prior years. And I'm just not sure if it's going to be worth the cost, because there will be a cost associated with it of getting the prior years completely up in QuickBooks, the way we've talked about the ability to run basically a P&L statement by farm, and then also consolidate by farmer as well.
Right. And no, I appreciate everything you're saying, Dan. And what I had done just to illuminate, if I could maybe share my screen, if that's all right.
Yeah, please.
Let's just take it. Can you see that?
Not
yet.
no.
yet. Huh.
Did you hit you hit shared screen, right? And then selected your document. There we go.
Okay.
Yep, there it is.
So just in terms of a spreadsheet, looking at our properties here aligned down the first column, and we've always looked at acres. I've used an app that measures distances and parameters, and the long and short of it is our properties have about 21,000 yards or 11.9 miles of boundary. And most of our expenses are going towards maintenance of boundary lines, buffer zones between the farming property and the rest of the township. That's a lot. It's quite a distance, actually, almost 12 miles. And these are estimates, but about 2.7 miles of our property borders a roadway. I'm not counting 295. That's separate, but an access road. And there's about 6.2 miles that actually border a residential property, someone's side yard, someone's backyard. And we have as neighbors, by my count on this app, 187 residential neighbors that border our preserved farmland. We're, as Dan said, our income is rather fixed. We have our average rent that we collect is about $54 an acre. We have 340 acres. You can do that math. It's about 15 grand a year or so. Like the last 2 weeks, we spent $1,400 on the back of 2 properties, which was absolutely necessary. Big wind had knocked a sizable tree down that was on a 45-degree angle, dangling kind of against another tree. It was our tree. It was a risk, though, to the property owners and to our neighbors. So we had that removed. But because the farmland, it came into preservation ownership in 1989, 1990, 91, 92. We're looking at, about 30 years ago that these boundaries were established and the residential houses were built beside them or behind them. So things age, the trees are getting bigger, and we spend a considerable amount of money in removing trees primarily, as well as bamboo along there. So I just thought that it might be productive for us as a board to start looking at, in addition to acreage, looking at these boundaries, 187 residential neighbors that, we want to be good neighbors to, obviously, and 99.9% of the time, they're great neighbors for us. That we're always going to do what we have to do to to maintain the property, but we are going to be spending, I would predict, much more than our revenue for the foreseeable future as we manage bamboo and maturing trees. And I just think in terms of our strategy and our planning, we have to reconcile with that and manage that. We're a nonprofit, and we're obviously not making a profit, but we also want to be responsible with the cash that we do have. So it's just another kind of way of looking at our planning and our budgeting that I thought I'd bring forward.
So Dennis, a question. So at the bottom there, where you have your cursor, the 8431 break even. Explain that versus the average rent. I know what the average rent per acre is.
Yeah. Well, that was just looking at how much revenue we generate with renting the farm property divided by 187 residential neighbors. So if every year we spent $84 per residential neighbor, we break even.
I see.
When we spend
$1,400
to remove a tree at a residential neighbor, then we spent 10 years worth of that break even amount, right? So we just want to kind of keep an eye on that. Like I say, no big decisions to be made, but just, I think, another way of trying to look at how we manage our boundaries responsibly, both financially responsible as well as just safety and aesthetics.
I want to check also that I understand. If I took the 8431 and took a particular parcel, like Farmview 2, that's an easy one, 10 neighbors. So are you saying that 10 times 8431 would be the break-even amount for that total parcel?
Hang on.
Line 10, or says 10?
I think you can't. I think you need to look at the total, not just one. Not just one in particular property.
Right. So what did you say? Farmview 2?
2. Farmview 2, because it has 10 residential properties there.
Right. And that's I was looking at it in aggregate, not by parcel.
I see.
But if our average boundary with a neighbor is about 58 yards. I mean, some of them are very, very long. There's some long properties, and some of them are obviously just 100 feet, 80 feet. So it's kind of a hodgepodge. The way that the way that I'm looking at that is this way. If you can see the map now, is that on your screen?
Not yet.
For some reason that's not. When I try to show that, it's not showing. Okay. No. Okay. That doesn't work. My apologies.
You have two screens, Dennis, or no? Just one?
No, I don't know. It's a photograph of this mapping software that for some reason is not showing. My apologies.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't mean to get too deep in the weeds here. I just try to get a different angle on it. I think that one thing that we could consider is that there is, as Dana says, an ever accelerating need to spend money on these buffer areas. Having said that, there was a good 20 years or so where probably very little was spent because the trees were young, the brush hadn't grown up, etc. So we have built up capital there that that will draw on. And I guess if we could build some kind of a model that looked at that, what our anticipated needs are going to be, which is admittedly hard to do because it's random. You get a storm comes along and a tree falls over. But I certainly think that we should review this carefully on each of these parcels for dead and dying. The ones that are liable to come down.
maybe more maintenance and less emergency responses.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, when a tree falls, it becomes a problem. Maybe some more proactive kind of tree maintenance would make sense, and in the long run be superior. We certainly look at our expenditures, as Dan said, by parcel and by subject matter, by event, by trees versus bamboo versus whatever, and kind of get a handle on that. So it again, just no big decisions to be made. Just that I thought might be useful as we're thinking about managing this resource.
Yeah, I think about this as, we could use, as we try to divide up the property and the way you analyzed it here, I think what we can do is take that and modify it to say, well, obviously we're not going to spend a certain amount per property every single year. No. But if we think about it as, a rolling, whatever the time period is, 5 years or something like that. And then if you allocate it or you divide up by, I thought acreage would probably be the way to do it, but maybe not. Maybe it's bordering, residential linear yards, bordering residential neighbors, something like that. And divide that up into the properties up into different buckets on our rolling cycle. And then you could have certain kind of maintenance budget and a certain emergency budget or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Because some properties are pretty, rectangular and inefficient, and others are very odd shaped and have a lot of boundary for little acres. Makefield Brook being the prime example of that, where there's a lot of wooded area in Makefield Brook that is, it's not, the line of the crop is 80 yards away from the fence. There's some woods.
Big woods,
those kinds of things. So,
John, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was going to say, before we even think about the maintenance, it would be interesting to sort of score some of the ones, or which ones are at highest risk, the difference, so that we can build a maintenance plan for them. So like the Clearview, for example, the buffers are pretty much, the roadway. There's not a lot of brush, although we have other issues there. We've got like erosion, which is a problem there. But if we score them and say, okay, this is what our risk levels are, this is what our maintenance plan is, and they could vary based on really the type of property, because they all, as you said, they're very different in terms of topography and then too, also thinking about what role the farmer has in keeping the buffers in good shape too, and auditing that.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, that was all. I just wanted to kind of highlight that and incorporate it into all of our thinking.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for it's very helpful to generate discussion and just what it's done here, so that I think we can go forward with that. Maybe what we can do is an executive session at some point. I was thinking to go over some of these, strategies and how we divvy up the parcels and what kind of plans we put together. So I don't know, Dan, what would you think on timing for when, this might be productive from your point of view to have the data to go into this?
I'd say January.
Okay. On maintenance planning. Okay. Got that down. Okay, great. Anything else from the treasurer, Dan?
Nope, nothing else.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, so we'll go right through buffer issues parcel by parcel. We'll start with you, Dan, again on Farmview 1. There's 1604 and 1642 Fairfield Road.
1604. So 1604, the neighbor reached out a little over a week ago, I think. I haven't been out there yet, but I told him I'd get out there. I asked him to send some pictures, which he did in the meantime. There's nothing urgent for sure. There's a little bit of gap between the fence. There's some trees, and then the buffer. So there's some trees down and some stuff in there that he wants us to look at to see if it can just get cleared out. The one tree, from the picture at least, it does look like it is from the trees, the wooded area, that it's fallen into the buffer, maybe even touching the actual crops. But I think that's been harvested now as well. But I need to get out there and actually just see it in person to get a better picture. So I'll report it back to you guys when I get out there in person. But it's certainly, I don't think it's a rush job to any extent. And part of it could be working with Sam to kind of pull it out and clear it out of the area at some point. 1642 Fairfield, that's down at the bottom, towards the bottom there near the retention basin. So we've been waiting. Mike and I, we went out there a few weeks ago, but just to quick look when we were out at a different property, but we were waiting for the field to be harvested there and then get in touch with the homeowner and go back out at the same time so we could talk with him, get a better sense of what actually he is seeing. So I think that was harvested about a week ago. So now we can probably try to get that on the calendar and get in touch with him to take care of that.
And that was drainage issues, right? That the homeowner was concerned about.
Yeah. He has his driveway there, and the one corner of the property, it looks like the water really just runs right across his driveway and then into what is his neighbor's property as well. And it creates kind of an ice patch right there that sounds like it might be relatively permanent over the course of the winter.
Okay. Lita.
All right.
Mr. Carney, 2048 and 2088.
All right. So 2048 Farmview Drive. So not too much of an update yet. Well, he's already cleared out the buffer area. He did some work himself in cleaning out the buffer area, as you guys know. He hired Corcoran Landscaping, actually, I think after he might have fired another landscaper to clean out the brush and get it off, which was the original reason that he reached out, right, was to see if he could have permission to drive up to have the brush from that area removed. So I know he's done that part. We've discussed with him separately about sharing some cost in replacing the fence there. And he has a lot of trees and real thick trees and brush intertwined within the fence. It's down the property line a little bit from where we did about 2-3 years ago, where we did a big sweep and cleaned out some brush and replaced the fence. So I think that, Mike, we had an estimate at least of around $1,400. Does that sound right?
Yes, but that go ahead.
And we had.
I thought no. Go ahead.
And then we agreed to. I'm sorry, Mike. You were starting to say that included.
That included taking down the fence, but Mr. Carney agreed to do it himself. So that came down to $900, and we'll split.
Got it. There. Great. So we're going to split, $900 was the estimate, and we were going to split that 50-50 to have the fence replaced and the stumps removed and all that.
Right.
And then we have 2088 Farmview Drive. We talked about this already, and we walked by this property. We kind of have a stretch of the buffer there that could use some work. And I haven't reached back out to the homeowner there, but where we were at was basically, I don't think that we need to have a special excursion to take care of that one particular fence line, but we should kind of plan that around perhaps a larger project on that back stretch of Leadham's, basically 2088 and the neighbors there. So I think we can work on that and kind of, I can maybe help. I can probably think about that a little bit more around nail down maybe what a project could look like, and then we can get an estimate and see where timeline where it may fit.
Okay. So that's it for Leadham. So on Longshore, I'll take that. So that's 1524 Pownell Drive, and earlier this year, Dan and John and I were out there and cleaned up the fence from mostly vines, and there's still a significant bent part of the fence that Apex had given us a quote on, and they're still they're going to do that job at the same time they do Mr. Carney's at 2048 Farmview Drive, and they're waiting on fencing material, so that hasn't happened yet. So that we're waiting on that. Makefield Brook, Dennis, on Wheatsheaf Road. You've already told us a little bit about.
Yeah, just on November 16th, Michael Kerr, neighbor at 1435 Wheatsheaf, contacted the township, sent an email about a tree that had come down on our property, but leaning towards his property and his neighbors at 1437. I went out there I believe it was the next day or 2 days later, and looked at it. I agreed. I thought it was unsafe circumstance. It needed to come down right away. We called Cochrane Landscaping. He was out there the next day, very responsive. I was very pleased with his response. He went out and surveyed it himself, gave us an email estimate, and we had it removed that same day. Both neighbors were very cooperative, gave us access to their backyards, and for the landscaper to do what he had to do. So a good outcome, but there's certainly some big trees along that wooded area in Makefield Brook that I don't think this will be, an isolated event. I mean, I've not seen anything that I would consider dangerous, but just knowing the age of the homes there, built in 1990, the age of the trees, it's, there's going to be some more of that kind of thing. But it was a good outcome. The neighbors were very pleased with Cochrane's cleaning up very, very well. So.
Okay. And the cleanup included their yards as well.
Yes. Oh. Now it was a sizable tree. It was pretty big, and he simply cut the tree into large lengths, maybe 5-6 feet length, full trunk, and left it back in the woods in our property. That, like I say, there is probably 70 or 80 yards of woods there between the cornfield. There's no sense in spending money to have him haul that away or chop that up. It's a rough wooded area. So another tree came down in the woods, basically.
Right. All right. Okay. That's our update on buffer issues, and we can move to the Respect Our Trees signs. Dennis, take us through that.
Okay. Again, I'm going to try to share my screen, but for some reason, photos don't seem to be showing. Let me try this again. Is that?
Yeah.
Your screen?
Got it.
Okay. This is the draft from Bob Shaw. I think the dimensions are 14 inches by 11 inches high, 14 inches wide. Wanted it to look kind of friendly, educational, natural, no big hard red letters, but basically to respect our trees and not attach screws or nails or staples to the tree, because it does cause the tree harm, can cause disease, and shorten the life of the tree. I spent some time removing the staples, huge number of staples that were put in the trees there along Woodside and the Longshore property, and they just can't all come out. It's a Herculean effort. I know the other directors have seen this language before and approved it. After looking, and this is, and Bob Shaw Signs did make the revisions that we asked. The only revision I now see after looking at it the 20th time is in this next to last green line. It says, "Thank you for respecting all trees in our lower Makefield Township community." I would propose striking the word township. That is not necessary. Thank you for respecting all trees in our lower Makefield community would seem superior to me, but
yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
And the proposal that and each sign is $43. I have a formal estimate from him that does not include the post upon which to affix it, but the sign itself. So we're proposing that we put the 3 of these along that row of beautiful sycamore trees that makes an L between Woodside Road and Dolington Road. It kind of wraps around. I would put 2 on Woodside, 1 towards kind of each end of Woodside, and then 1 in that shorter span on Dolington, and set it back kind of in the same plane, I guess, the same line as the trees, approximately. The only issue I would see, John, from the township's perspective, the township cuts that grass. It's just one more. There's a tree every 10 yards, and they work around those trees, and it's just a couple more posts for them to drive around. I think it's also noteworthy that L, at that intersection between Woodside and Dolington, actually the corner of Woodside and Dolington is not farmland preservation property. That's township property for a small gap or a small space. It's when you look at the boundary lines, can you see that I brought up on the screen? This map?
No, all I'm seeing is the sign still.
For some reason, these maps don't want to be shown. Let me try that. Okay. Bear with me. I'm pretty much confirmed all thumbs on this.
Oh, so far so good.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Oh,
very good.
So this is Longshore. This is you see the golf course up here.
Yeah.
Woodside and Dolington. This app has every individual property owner's property boundaries. See these thin red lines?
Yeah.
And if I zoomed in enough, it would show you the name of each property owner as well. And this shows the name of our name here. The thick red lines are lines that I've actually drawn. I drew those to make those perimeter measurements. The boundary lines. So a blue is a roadway and a red is a neighbor. But in this corner right here, if I zoomed in more, this little shaded area would say Lower Makefield Township. I didn't know that before. Maybe everybody did, but
no.
This is all Lower Makefield farmland preservation. That little corner is Lower Makefield Township. I don't think it makes a practical difference, but I would be proposing one of these signs like here towards this east end and here towards this west end. It might be on township property. That's why I call that out to you, John, in case that's some kind of issue.
Probably, if we're going to be on township property, it would probably require board approval.
I can see to it that it does not go on township property and just.
That would probably be great. Yeah.
Okay. Why don't I do that? We'll be sure to respect this little invisible line.
Yeah. And as far as placement, you were just getting to that, Dennis. I had a question about that, and as far as maybe putting them in between trees, equidistant from the tree, the areas you want to put it in, so that the mowers can get around them, rather than putting it close up to a tree. And
yes, yeah, I think that's right. I think I'd put it in between so there's room for a mower to pass.
Right.
That makes sense.
So it'd be one near where that little, the township right there, right? And then one in the middle and one towards, the end.
I was proposing just one here and one here.
Okay.
The third one is on this. This is also a row of the same sycamore trees.
Oh, right.
So on Dolington, just put one there.
Right. I guess I didn't think of those because no one posted anything on those, but certainly we want to cover those as well.
Right.
Okay.
There might be a deed issue with that little chip out, because if you go across the street, there's a similar chip out, but it shows it as Lower Makefield Farmland Preservation.
Correct. And those are two separate parcels. We have them logged in as two separate parcels, but they're both farmland preservation. So we kind of ignore that.
Okay.
Maybe the one across the street, but you call it chip out, maybe that's the Beth El property, because I understand at one point there was a congregation that was owned that land, but it was passed or transferred to farmland preservation.
Right. That's what we call Bethel. Right.
Okay.
Well, we'll keep it on farmland property, I think, out of practicality. If everybody's in agreement.
Dan, you're okay with that, taking out the one word there on the sign?
I agree.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be picky, to the extent that you're going to remove that word township, do you want to put a period at the end of that line there as well?
Absolutely. Why not? So I guess what I would ask is I think we should have a formal motion and a second and a vote to spend the money to have these three signs made and have them installed in the locations we're talking about. I can go out there and mark the location with a stake. John, is that something the township would help us with in the installation?
Oh, making sure that we're not on the property, you mean, or actually the install?
No, I mean just pounding in the iron post.
Yeah, I would think
installation.
Huh?
The actual installation of it.
I would think that would be possible. We would have to talk to the head of
Public
Works. And that would be Greg Hucklebridge. It's greg.h@lmt.org.
Yeah.
So if you just want to email him and CC me.
Okay.
And then,
to ask him to install those, we're going to order them from Bob Shaw. And, Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
And Dennis, you were thinking from a post standpoint, those green, I think they call them U posts. I think is that what you were thinking, or something different?
No,
because I think we can probably just pick those up then at those posts at Home Depot, and then the bolts, and then just hand it over to hopefully to the township.
Stainless steel bolts and, okay.
Agreed.
Great.
Okay. So is there a motion to move forward with this Respect Our Trees signage?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to expend the necessary funds to have Bob Shaw make these three signs, and to approach the township to install them, and for us to get the necessary post and hardware.
Right.
For that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Good. Great job. Thank you, Dennis.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent moving that forward. So our next topic is introductory letter to neighbors, and we've had several neighbors over the last little while that have either moved into the area new and didn't know who owned the property behind them, and we thought there was a letter that was sent out about 8 years ago that was highly legal. I agree with your assessment, Dennis, that you did this when you looked at it by email. So we thought we'd start by just talking about what do we want to say in the letter? What are the main points that we want to highlight and construct something new?
Can we back up just a second and explain the purpose of the letter, or how we would use the letter?
Sure.
So it stemmed from conversations with a neighbor that, he is newer to being a neighbor to us. And, I think there's just a lot of confusion in general. A lot of people move in and out of who owns the property, what to do with the property, how to reach out and handle if there's an issue with the property or their neighbor, which is us. And basically, Mike, as you pointed out, about 8 years ago, there was a mass mailing that went to all of our residential neighbors. And I think before that, it was probably 8 years prior to that something went out. And our thought was, perhaps we do another mass mailing, since it has been 8 years, but can we also then put a system in place where every time somebody sells a home, that we can have an alert. We have a database of all of our neighbors, and we have an alert that every time a property is sold, we can send a new letter to that new neighbor. Welcome to the neighborhood, blah, 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 right? Give them the same letter. And then, so I agree, though, back to, the content of the letter. I think the old version, as you pointed out, was very legalese in nature. My thought is it needs to be very short and to the point so that people actually read this letter. And, who are we? Who owns the property? What do we do with the property? The purpose of it? What to do and what not to do, i.e., don't throw brush over the fence line. We need to help. We need to partner with you in maintaining these buffers so that that doesn't overgrow in the fences and it's not maintained, etc. But I think it needs to be short and to the point.
Yeah.
I agree. And to that point of keeping it short, looking at the kind of the outline of the original letter or the past letter, there was a lot of time taken or a lot of space used up on history. How did farmland preservation come about? It occurred to me, why wouldn't that be on a website? If you go to our committee page, I mean, the history shouldn't need updating very often, right? I mean, if we're going to write a page of history on what farmland preservation is and its goals and history, any resident should be able to just see that when they go to the LMT website. Pursuant to resolution 555, like it's none of that is necessary. No. If you're in a court of law, that's a good fact to have. We're not
drawn up by a lawyer, by the way. So,
I mean, I don't, is our website capable of just hosting that kind of basic information? I trust it can.
I know some of the other, on the township website, some of the other committees, they have more language. So
Yeah.
I can't imagine, John, unless if you disagree, I can't imagine adding a couple paragraphs of additional language could be much of an issue on the website. And we could easily just direct them to the website by way of this letter then as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to now. I'm checking the page. There's a mission statement and the history, which has all the information here. So what
we already have it there?
Yeah, I think this is all you need to. I don't have the chat in this function here. Darn it. Here.
We can just review it again and confirm if we want to add any.
Yeah.
This is the page. Can you see the page?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this has the board members and Eric's got to move, but we get the mission statement, minutes, the history, which has the resolution information, the farms, and then farmland preservation. So
Okay.
this is all the information that you need. And you could just take this link right here,
Put it right in.
put it right in. If you're interested in learning more, visit this page.
Okay.
Or actually make it even easier. Just use
Okay. So that let's each of us kind of, unless you want to assign that, John, Michael, you want to just kind of review that text and on the website and be sure it's current and accurate and.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
And then we can refer them in the letter. And I'm assuming that Dennis, you're going to take a shot at redrafting or starting this anew.
Sure. I'll take it.
As secretary, I thought it would be appropriate.
Oh, good.
going for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to send
Now-
you a link for the page and a shortened link.
John, is there, would we have a change in board members or some update? Is there somebody at the township that pays attention to that and will update the website, or is that up to us as a?
No, we would just, I typically, I would just send that to the township manager and then he can route it to get fixed.
Okay.
So I'll look at the info, and then if there's anything I need input on, I'll get it. Otherwise, I'll just, send it to Kurt
Mm-hmm.
about updating the members, and I'll keep an eye on that.
Okay.
Now, I think maybe I can reach out to Barbara, maybe as a starting point. I'm assuming probably 8 years ago, she was probably involved to have like the list of all of our neighbors and the addresses.
He was.
So it'd be nice if we could try to get that so that we can put that into a database. And then, I mean, I can even talk with her or somebody. I don't know who, John, might be a person to talk to. Is there a way, short of doing something ourselves or some sort of other website, I don't know what website that might be, but to be alerted? Like if we provide a list of addresses, like how does the township track anything for change of ownership or real estate transfers? Is there of a way that we could be alerted when there's a transfer of real estate?
I don't know if there's an alerting function. The Bucks County Planning Commission has a website which has each parcel and who owns it, the mapping that Dennis showed. And so that's how you could find out who owns each parcel around farmland preservation. But I don't think there's an alerting feature there.
But of course, the township knows when there's a tax transfer, right? I mean,
they do, yes.
Right.
And they would be the ones. That's something maybe once a year we might say, hey, can you tell us if any of these parcels have changed ownership? And then that might trigger the letter, rather than trying to do it, because we've only sent one of every 8 years, maybe once a year. We say, hey, we're going to send you, and we might want to do it springtime, just as an example, like,
Right.
when they start the caring for the property.
Okay.
But yeah.
I'll reach out to Barbara because I think she might be the starting point, just to see if she may have something in the files from 8 years ago. Just some sort of mail merge from way back when, at least as a starting point, and then we can kind of take it from there and maybe do some updating ourselves first.
And the other thing I was thinking about is that, Dennis, that software you have, that app, is quite nice. And if it's up to date, we don't have to go to the Bucks County website each time to look individually for new.
Well, that software gives you the name that's on the deed. It does not give you the address. It doesn't give you the mailing address. You can look at where the property is.
I see.
It doesn't give you a house number.
Okay.
So,
Okay. So I got you down for that, Dan, as an action.
Great.
I mean, the other thing that's, as far as content, we want not only, don't throw things over, but also, if you're going to, if you have a need or feel you have a need to go on our property, that, should request it, so we don't want people trespassing and then if they get hurt, suing. So that should be part of it as well. Okay. So Dennis, do I have you down for taking another crack at this? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going out of town Thursday, so it won't be real fast, but
that's right. Redraft, neighbor letter. Okay, got that. Okay, as far as, any other comments on that, on the letter to neighbors? Okay, all right, we'll move on to bamboo remediation. As far as I know, I tried to get an update from Matt today. I didn't receive any updates. I'm assuming, I was going to ask you, Dan, how many payments we've made, because we assumed 4 times, this is for bamboo remediation to Matt Corcoran landscaping. We've assumed 4 times a year. Don't know if he's done that or it's even has been needed. Because I was thinking he would be doing, and I'll update everyone when I do receive his communication about whether he's done one recently or intends to do one in December. And individually on those, the only thing to add is that Farmview 2, where it hadn't been added as part of our initial plan, is that we need to remediate our side, and I think it's been overgrown, at least during the summer, for Matt Corcoran to look at. So we need to get him back out. There is some bamboo in our side. It's minimal, but we do need to remediate that per Mike Kurt. That's at Sunnyside Lane. Otherwise, I'm assuming no news is good news, and that he's gone along. Matt Corcoran has gone along with his program, and it's under control. I'll wait for Dan here a second. We've lost voice. Let's see what he thinks.
Lost voice and video, I think.
Video.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't have the information in front of me, but I can figure it out. Or actually, I'll probably have to reach out to him because some of his invoicing isn't always clear about what exactly is taking place. So I can reach out to confirm, or at least double check kind of some of the past invoices first, and then go from there.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Okay, so the next one is the stormwater drainage plan for Mr. Kaplan's subdivision. So we received through Jim Majewski a plan, which I forwarded to Bucks County Conservation District, Rachel Onuska. She had a look at it, and what she said was she was fine with it, provided that the size of the rain garden, there's a rain garden there and a berm as well, as part of the plan, accurately limits outflow to the pre-construction stormwater runoff rate. I had planned to just ask Jim if that's the case, but I wanted to bring it up board first to see whether there's anything else that you want me to ask, or simply ask Jim. Does he feel that that's the case? So any other comments on that? You want me to just ask Jim if he feels that the rain garden will limit outflow to pre-construction levels and the berm will help?
I'm assuming if it was approved that it meets the township, requirements. And I've watched some of those meetings on Facebook where they talk about rainwater and the amount of surface area and everything, and it seems like they were always pretty strict on that stuff about and implementing rain gardens to the extent required. So I would expect that the answer is fine, but I guess it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yep.
Yeah.
Kaplan subdivision. Okay, I'll follow up with him, and
he should be able to give you the correct. I mean, he can do the calculations and make sure everything's fine for you.
Okay.
And Mike, did you send to the township the soil conservation plan that was put together by the Bucks County Conservation Service?
I didn't.
I mean, is that something that I don't know if that's something that if they're planning on developing that site and it's beside our site to just so the township engineers are aware of the same things we're looking at.
It couldn't hurt. I think that's a good idea.
That was my attitude. Probably can't hurt. Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that. So as part of that communication, I'll do both. Definitely. Thanks for the suggestion. Okay. We'll move on to onboarding new board members. Just to let you know that December 6th, thanks to John, we've got it on the schedule for December 16th for Mr. Carney to be proposed to the board. So they'll need to approve him to join our board. And assuming that goes through, then we'll have him join the January meeting, which is not scheduled yet because it has to do with Zoom availability. So we'll have him join then. And we had talked before. John, any comments on that? I mean, is anything else that need to be done?
No, I don't think, as long as he's provided his resume to Kurt, we should be able, in fact, I can check if that's the case. I think he has. He's done everything that was expected.
Yeah, he sent us what he was going to send the board.
Yeah, so I think he's all set on that. Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
He has his letter of interest that was sent like over a week ago. Yep.
Oh, you did receive it. Good.
Yep.
Good. Yep. Good. I know we did. I wasn't positive that the board had, Board of Supervisors. So the other thing that we had talked about before is anytime a new member joined, that we would review with that person our operating principles.
Mm-hmm.
So once we get the go-ahead, I'd ask your permission for me to run through those with Sean, or if you all others want to do that as well.
Go for it. I mean, I think we're all familiar with them, and yeah, that's part of the introduction.
Okay.
We appreciate his volunteering.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's still one opening, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Still one opening.
I'm noticing that, and there's another application. So let me see.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I will. I don't want to disclose anything about the person or anything like that, but
Sure.
there may be another person hopefully coming soon.
Great.
We'll see. Yeah.
Okay.
great. Excellent. Good news. All right. So we're up to any other business? Yes, Dennis.
I have a preliminary proposal that I'd like to bounce off the board before formalizing it, maybe at the next board meeting. I met a neighbor at Makefield Brook where that tree had come down that we were just discussing, and this neighbor, Dr. Strnad, I think it is Strnad.
Strnad, yeah.
Strnad is a PhD entomologist. And he and I were having a conversation about the property and the trees and all the rest. He's an original. He's been in Makefield Township for 30 years. Bought that house in 1990 or so. He had an idea that I quite frankly like. Our goal is to support agriculture and agricultural enterprises in the township. He is a hobby beekeeper, and honey beekeeping and honey making is agriculture. It is very much agriculture. Right now, our agriculture is limited to corn and soybeans, and we don't have many other options. But in Makefield Brook, there's a large section of woods back there. The woods from his backyard along that fence line and his neighbor's backyard, it's 70, I measured it, 70 yards of woods until you get to the cornfield. 2 honeybee hives, which would be considered the minimum to kind of start. And this, if we did anything along these lines, it would be kind of a test case, right? We would stick our toe in the water gently. Would need a footprint of land about 10 foot square is all, and it could be in the woods. And the availability of pollinators in our area can only help. There are apple trees that will increase their production or potentially increase their production, blossoming trees, fruiting trees, and I, for one, am not familiar with beekeeping. He is an expert. I am not. But I would think that if we gave approval and actually leased a small section of what is this woods, which is not being used now, out towards the cornfield, it would be 50, 60, 70 yards away from the nearest house, which is a considerable distance. It would not interfere with our agricultural tenant for the property, and we'd obviously need our farming tenant's permission because we have leased that land already to that enterprise. But so there's administrative things to be sorted out. But if the board is open to considering something like that, we could ask our neighbor entomologist to make a proposal at the next meeting of what would be involved and what the activity would be. I understand that beekeeping, he would be present on the property maybe once a week for a short period of time, tending the hives, maybe half hour every week or so. We would need to provide access to the property through the fence in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
But with his residence right there, I would expect he would be a very reliable beekeeping tenant on our land. So it's something I never thought of before, but I thought it was a very curious idea. It supports agriculture. It supports our environment. We all know that pollinators are in short supply. There's a real problem going on. And this might be a way for our land to, be, again, do something else that's productive and beneficial. So,
on the face of it, sounds very positive. Dan, I know we had this issue come up. There's a corollary. We had a neighbor on Longshore who wanted to have a pen of goats.
Wow.
Yeah, in the woods, in the wooded area.
Wow.
And we did not approve it. There were some issues around fencing. He wanted to electrify the fence around the goats. But Dan, maybe you have better recollection of that situation than I do. What do you recall?
Yeah, I think there were a number of other issues that made it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
I think exactly that. There were going to be some other, permanent fixtures or, the fencing and all that.
Right.
I think what we're talking about here is certainly worth a proposal and listening to and exploring. It sounds like a great idea, as on the face of it, at least.
And Dennis, you're thinking about this was there would be these boxes, the beehives, and they would be put up in the woods, basically.
Yeah.
No other fencing around it.
No, that wouldn't be necessary. I mean, there should be no one else back there. No one is, it should be trespassing. I think it would be safe. And it would be up to the entomologist to look around with the vegetation and the airspace and whatever to determine what is the optimal location. But there's certainly there's over 7 acres of woods there along that Makefield Brook section.
Right.
If we can make some productive use out of it, I mean, I'm envisioning this as a formal landlord kind of relationship. It's not just some hobby neighbor wandering over and doing. It would be, a formalized relationship. We'd have to sort out, what all that entails. But it seems like it would be very sortable.
Dan, you were going to say something?
Oh, no, sorry.
Well, I'd like to have him as part of the. I'm agreeing that a proposal would be fine. I would enter. That would be a good thing to have. I would ask him to propose how he would access the property. Would he build a gate in our fence? What his proposal would be.
Right.
Yeah. And then Dennis, you're thinking about some relationship where he leases the land to do that?
I mean, that was what came to mind. I mean, I haven't talked to him in any detail whatsoever about it, but I would think if he's going to put some assets down on the ground and, we want to limit our liability and he wants to limit his liability and things, we would have, a formal agreement that grants that, that access, et cetera. How much that is worth, what we would charge. I can't imagine it'd be much, but.
Or it's a sublease. Or it's a sublease from.
Or it's a sublease.
Right.
That could well be. Now, talking to him, I said, if we wanted to stick our toe in the water and approve something like this on a trial basis, what would be the shortest period of time? And he thought, practically speaking, to establish hives, you'd probably want 2 years. So if we did something, we'd go. My proposal or thought would be you go into it with kind of a two year horizon. Both parties get to kind of evaluate at that time how it's working or not working, or is it worth it or whatever. And then, if it's working, we can continue or expand it, or we could contract it. But it would be kind of a 2-year commitment, I think, to make the effort worthwhile.
I think to round it out, if you consult the lease to see what subleasing, I know we've done this before, but if you would do that, that would help round this out, how it would actually be worked out.
It could. We would talk to Sam Stewart, and obviously have to have his concurrence and agreement, et cetera. And that would, we'd want to tell him where we're thinking of putting these things, and if it really matters to him or not. I don't think it probably would, but
right.
Like you say, if it's a sublease, obviously we need his signature, et cetera.
Just one quick item. As we kind of consider it, right? I think in his proposal, he needs to make sure he speaks to, which you already did, right? The community good that is coming from this. And, Mike, you talked about how's he going to access, right? Is he going to put a fence or something, or a gate in from like the fence or something? We don't want this to be perceived as an extension of his backyard, right? This needs to be kind of separate and apart, right? So that's all. I think just need to make sure that he realizes that as he comes up with his proposal and how he would operate this.
Right. And I know he has a little LLC. I think he runs does some beekeeping with a partner over in New Jersey, where they have some space, and this would, allow him to expand those operations a bit. But I do see, community and environmental positives from it. And quite frankly, I've been racking my brain for other agricultural choices that we have, around Lower Makefield, other than corn and beans. Not happy with those, and we won't want to change that. But this might open up something else.
It's a bit easier than putting cattle out in the field and figuring that out.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, I'll try to capture an action item for you, Dennis, and I'll get to that. The order we get to it. Good other business. Thanks, Dennis. Anybody else with any other business? Where we get to review of action items? Nope. Okay. So let me go through and you correct me as I go. So I have for myself, this is for action items. So I have for myself to schedule an executive session in January so that we can plan for maintenance of the buffers, cover all aspects of that. I also have, I'll review the website for the accuracy of the info. This is related to the letter to neighbors. I'll review the website, LMT website, for the accuracy of the information and get with Kurt to update our new members as needed. Dan, I have you to reach out to Barbara for a list of owners of properties for that letter, and that we consider once a year to ask LMT tax person, Rebecca, I guess it still is.
Becky Cicchini is our tax collector.
Yep, for change of ownership and how we might get hooked into that. Dennis, along that same line with the neighbor letter, that you'll take a shot at redrafting that. Dan, I have you down for following up with Matt regarding bamboo remediation. Look at your records for how many times that he's done it this year. Myself to follow up with Jim Majewski on the Stackhouse and the Kaplan subdivision, and I will send him the Bucks County Conservation District soil conservation plan for Stackhouse. So that's a great idea there, Dennis. Thank you. And I'm also going to follow up with any new approved members of the Farmland Preservation Corp with the operating principles. Once I hear back from, I guess we'll hear back from. How is that, through Barbara or you, John?
So You may notice I just sent you an email, Michael, that details with the other applicant. Hopefully they'll be scheduled at that same day as well. Should both applicants be approved, that would be a board action at that meeting that evening, December 16th.
Okay.
So assuming they're both scheduled and assuming they're approved, it'd be public at that point, and you would know about it.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
December 16th. All right. Thanks. And then Dennis, you'll follow up with the Mr. Doctor. Say it again.
I'm sorry. It's
Sidran?
Strand.
Strand. Okay. Strand on bees, and he would bring a proposal. I guess there's no rush. The January meeting, the February meeting, whatever his choice is.
Yeah, right? I'll talk to him and see what makes sense, if it's January or February or just what.
Very good. Very good. Any other action items that I've left out?
I'm going to order the signs from Bob Shaw, and I'll reach out to the township about installation of the signs, and I'll go to Home Depot and get the right kind of posts and hardware for them.
Good. Okay. Yeah, that's a important one that I left out. Thank you. All right. If there are no other follow-up items or any other business, we'll call the meeting to adjournment. And thank you very much for participating. And thanks for those who have been listening in. Have a nice evening.
Happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays. That's right. We won't see each other until January.
Great.
And I'll get information to everyone on the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you.